Truman Burbank was selected at birth and adopted by a corporation following an unwanted pregnancy. Unaware of the truth, he becomes the unwitting star of The Truman Show, a 24/7 reality program broadcast globally and filmed using thousands of hidden cameras, including one in his ring. Every moment of his life is on display for a worldwide audience. The show's creator, Christof, aims to capture Truman's authentic emotions and present him as a relatable everyman. Truman's hometown, Sea Haven Island, is actually a massive set housed inside a dome visible from space. Its residents are actors who promote products to both Truman and the audience to fund the show. Christof controls every aspect of Truman's life, including the weather, and stages traumatic events to discourage him from exploring beyond Sea Haven. Truman has a deep fear of water, instilled after a staged sailing accident in which his father drowned. Truman begins each day with his signature phrase, "Good morning. Oh, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." One morning, he discovers a large stage light has fallen from the sky. On the radio, he hears a suspicious story about an airplane shedding parts, clearly a cover-up. At a newsstand, he buys a paper declaring Sea Haven the best place on earth and a fashion magazine, from which he rips out images. At his job as an insurance salesman, he calls directory assistants in Fiji to ask for Sylvia Garland, but is told there's no listing. Sylvia, a woman Truman once fell for, had been forcibly removed from the show. Lawrence, a colleague, asks Truman to visit Wells Park, accessible only by ferry, to close an account. Truman, fearful of water, makes an attempt, but backs out at the last moment. At home, his wife Meryl returns from her fictional nursing job and presents him with a chef's pal kitchen tool, clearly as part of a product placement. That night, Truman confides in his best friend Marlin while hitting golf balls off a bridge. He says he's thinking about quitting his job and leaving the island. Marlin insists he's lucky and has a wonderful life in Sea Haven. Truman mentions wanting to go to Fiji, and although Marlin doubts him, Truman says it will happen soon. Truman visits the beach, remembering the storm that took his father's life, which triggered his fear of water. Rain suddenly falls, but only on Truman, before quickly becoming normal rain again. The next morning, Truman tells Meryl he wants to travel. She dismisses the idea, saying they have financial obligations and had planned to start a family. Truman says the baby can wait. He wants adventure now. Meryl insists his feelings are temporary and will pass. Soon after, Truman sees a homeless man he believes is his father. Actors immediately block him and the man is shoved onto a bus. Truman visits his mother and tells her what he saw. She brushes it off, suggesting he's only feeling guilty about the past. She reminds him they never recovered a body and tries to manipulate his emotions by saying she never blamed him for what happened. Later, Truman opens a locked box in his basement. Inside are childhood photos, a keepsake sweater, and a composite photo he's built from fashion magazines to reconstruct Sylvia's face. Years earlier, Christof had planned for Truman to marry Meryl, but Truman became infatuated with Sylvia, an extra who tried to reveal the truth. One night, she told Truman she wasn't supposed to talk to him. They shared a kiss on the beach before a man posing as her father took her away, claiming they were moving to Fiji. In the real world, Sylvia watches Truman on TV, heartbroken, and is now part of the Free Truman activist group fighting to free him. The next day, Truman hears his radio glitch and picks up behind-the-scenes crew chatter instructing actors to get into position. Disturbed, he breaks from his routine and enters an office building. He catches a glimpse of crew members relaxing behind a fake elevator wall before being rushed out. Truman confronts Marlin, claiming he's being watched. Later, while looking through a wedding album with his mother and Meryl, Truman notices Meryl had her fingers crossed in their wedding photo, proof their marriage is a sham. The next morning, Truman asks Meryl to speak outside. She says she's late for an amputation at the hospital, ironically the same building Truman nearly entered the day before. As she leaves, Truman says, "I'll cross my fingers for you," which visibly unsettles her. Suspicious, Truman follows Meryl to her fake hospital job and sneaks inside. The staff are actors, fumbling through a fake surgery. Truman leaves and heads to a travel agency. Bags packed, trying to book a flight to Fiji. The agent tells him nothing is available for weeks. At the bus station, he tries to get to Chicago, but the driver intentionally causes the bus to break down. The other passengers immediately get off, and the actor playing the driver quietly apologizes to Truman, saying, "I'm sorry, son." That evening, Merrill returns home to find Truman watching traffic. He points out that the same people in cars keep looping. Merrill tries to distract him by talking about a weekend barbecue. When she acknowledges that he's upset and wants to go to Fiji, she suggests he save up for a few months first. But Truman is determined. He says, "Let's go now," pulls the car out of the driveway and heads down the road. Truman drives to a roundabout. When he exits, they are immediately blocked by a wall of cars. Merrill suggests they just go home. Instead, Truman reverses back into the roundabout and loops around it several times. Then he exits down the same road as before. This time, there's no traffic at all. Merrill becomes increasingly anxious and demands to be let out of the car. Truman, still calm, replies, "No, I think I'd like a little company." They drive to the bridge leading out of town. Overcome by his fear of water, Truman puts Merrill's hand on the wheel, closes his eyes, and speeds across. They make it. Moments later, they're stopped at a power plant checkpoint by a police officer who tells them there's been a leak and the area is being evacuated. They must turn back. Truman thanks him, but the officer slips up saying, "You're welcome, Truman," even though Truman never gave his name. Realizing something is wrong, Truman bolts from the car and escapes into the woods. He is quickly captured by crew members in hazmat suits. Back home, Truman confronts Merrill, asking why she'd want to have a baby with him if she can't even stand him. She denies it, then tries to offer him hot chocolate, but lists all the features like a commercial. Truman lashes out, accusing her of being part of the deception. When she grabs a knife, he restrains her and she looks up, shouting, "Do something!" Marlin enters with beers, and Merrill flees into his arms, crying, "How can anyone expect me to carry on under these conditions? It's unprofessional." Marlin and Truman sit on a bridge. Truman says he feels like the world revolves around him. Marlin gives a heartfelt monologue assuring him that he'd never lie. But in the control room, we see Christoph feeding Marlin every word. The next moment is staged. Truman's long-lost father appears, and they embrace as the world cheers. Sylvia watches with concern, fearing Truman will now stay. Christoph appears on True Talk, defending the show. He says Truman always wanted to explore, so they had to curb that instinct. He claims Truman is free to leave anytime, and that Sylvia is just upset because Truman prefers the world they've created. Christoph reveals plans to pair Truman with a new love interest and broadcast the first on-air baby conception. The next day, Truman seems back to his cheerful self. He even meets a new female co-worker. That night, the director loses track of him, believing Truman is asleep in the basement. When Christoph has Marlin check on him, they find Truman gone. He's escaped through a tunnel. Christoph immediately cuts the broadcast. A frantic search begins. It's still night in Sea Haven, so Christoph orders the sun turned on. The world watches a "please stand by" screen as rumors spread that Truman might be dead. Ratings surge, and sponsors threaten to pull out. Then Christoph realizes they haven't checked the ocean. They turn the broadcast back on and see Truman sailing a small boat. Truman looks at his photo of Sylvia, his determination to find her clear. Christoph tries to stop him by creating a violent storm. Truman holds on even after being thrown overboard. Soaked and defiant, he shouts at the sky, "Is that the best you can do? You're gonna have to kill me!" Christoph pushes harder, nearly capsizing the boat. The world watches in horror. Finally, Christoph relents, and the storm ceases. Truman survives, having tied himself to the boat. He sails on until his boat crashes into the dome wall. Heartbroken and overwhelmed, Truman realizes his world has been a lie. He sobs, then discovers a staircase blending into the wall. At the top is a door labeled "Exit." As Truman prepares to leave, Christoph speaks from the sky, calling himself the creator of the show and Truman its star. He insists the outside world is dangerous and that Truman has nothing to fear in Sea Haven. Truman asks, "Was anything real?" Christoph replies, "You were." After a pause, Truman smiles and delivers his signature line. "In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." He takes a bow and walks through the door. Sylvia rushes out of her apartment to meet him. The world erupts in celebration. Christoph, stunned, watches silently as his creation crumbles. The executives cut the broadcast. The Truman Show is over, and Truman is finally free.